Why are software companies investing in community? We'll talk about that today on Culture Builder Live. Software companies investing in people. That doesn't sound right. We'll talk about building community companies, particularly in the software space. Today, I'm joined by Anna Fillippova, the Director of Community and Data at DBT Labs. Anna, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Really excited to be here.
And I'm excited to have you because this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I'm super interested in the idea of community companies, but I want to dig into the specific nature of software companies doing this. You're at DBT Labs, a growth stage tech unicorn, big, efficient. Why the heck are you investing in community? Talk generally. Why are software companies investing in community?
It's a really good question. And you might be looking at recent trends like ChatGPT and the industry kind of moving in a direction of taking people out of the equation and saying, well, what is the role of community in a world that is post ChatGPT? And the way that I think of it is what ChatGPT is really doing is it's helping human beings move up the stack. And instead of focusing on writing the same email over and over again, you are enabled by technology to create more leverage in yourself. And software companies are trying to do that in a bunch of different ways. And ultimately, creating leverage is about people and letting people focus on the problems that are most important to them. And community, to me, especially the kind of community that lives around DBT, the technology, is also about moving up the stack. This is something that is a core company value, and it's something that the tool enables people to do. It enables you to stop thinking about the order of operations of the data that you need to process, and it enables you to think about the core business problem instead. And so to me, those are really synergistic. And go ahead.
No, you caught me here on this moving up the stack. I really like that logic. Immediately, you flood into my mind the idea of if you wanted to launch a website at some point, you had to like set up your own server, and then we continue to automate away those needs, and we focus on increasingly.
Yeah, I mean, when I was building websites back in the day, it was you had to code for different web browsers. Now you click a few buttons.
Right. And so like your logic here is community then is, if anything, it's the thing that right now we think is least able to be automated away, that presumably we think that we want to have human connection with other humans, we think. And so that is presumably what ultimately might outlast the mountains, that the differentiation a community can have is person-to-person relationships, is community. That is differentiation where technology can't be.
Yes. In fact, I might even say that community and investing in community for your company is the differentiation that you will have as a software company, because it reminds you to build for the human beings and to solve the problems that the humans in your community are solving.
Feels very much like that old line of you got to build with, not build for, speak to customers early and often, and community makes that you can't avoid it at that point.
Correct.
Yeah, I like that. All right, so let's dive a bit more. I'm honestly curious how one becomes director of community somewhere. Can we touch on what's your own career path? How do you become director of community at a tech company like DBT Lab scale?
Yeah, totally. I don't know that my career path is at all standard, but I think that's true for all community leaders. No one really has the same journey. My particular journey started more than 10 years ago now. I was really interested in open source, and I was doing research as part of a PhD on open source communities and how they function. It made no sense to me that people from all over the world would get together and work on something out of sheer goodwill. And I wanted to understand it better. So I started attending software meetups where people talked about some of these open source projects that I was interested in. And I learned a lot and I gained a lot. I learned everything I knew about computers and the internet and technology from people in software communities. And I started to want to give back. And so over time, I found myself helping out, stacking chairs, ordering pizzas, eventually finding speakers. I'm like, oh, I just talked to this person. Like, let me connect you. And before I knew it, I was running a community program. I was volunteering, and I spent most of my career volunteering. It was something I just did. And over time, I moved into a data role, and I tried to apply some of those lessons in a data context. I studied and collected data on software communities at GitHub, and I was an analyst for a long time. And I ran into so many roadblocks trying to do that our team had to develop a lot of software ourselves. And then when I heard about DBT and what DBT was doing, or DBT Labs was doing with DBT the tool, I kind of turned around and said, oh, well, why have I been recreating all of this from scratch? This is the stuff that I need. And it's open source. And I know how to speak to the community. So it was a really wonderful connection of my data background and all of this open source community work that I've done before that came together in this role.
You touched on something close to my personal heart and technically is reporting, this very wholesome role that a lot of local tech ecosystems have played around the world. So many people went out to the co-working space, the university, the coffee shop or whatever, and met geographically near people whose work could be taking place anywhere. Just because so much has changed in the last couple of years of the pandemic, the tripling of remote work hours and technical roles. We're doing a lot of reporting about what does that local tech ecosystem look after the pandemic. Just as someone who both builds one of software's great big online communities, but someone who just said she got her start with an in-person, geographically constrained local tech kind of meetup vibe. How optimistic are you about the return of the local tech meetup culture that we saw in the 2019 era? Is that come back?
It's already here. And it was really interesting to watch this unfold. Sometime around March, I think, is when, at least in the data community, events started to come back into an in-person space, and everyone is a little nervous. How is this going to go? Is anyone going to show up? And I would watch these Twitter threads unfold where someone would say, hey, I'm going to this thing. Is anyone else going? And people would literally buy their ticket and respond and, well, I'm going now. And it turned out there was a lot of latent need for connection that we had kind of put aside. So as we went remote during the pandemic, I think what happened was we learned how to develop our existing relationships and move them into an online context, but building new relationships online, and especially organic new relationships online, is really hard. And I think that's what a local in-person community really does, is allows you to connect with people that you wouldn't normally meet.
Yeah. So, I mean, that seems like an important headline given the breadth and size and strength of DBT Labs online community. You stand here as the director of community and data thinking that in-person local community that often funneled people into these careers or create a connection, you think that remains part of this world even after the pandemic disruption?
I think it is central. I think it's important for community leaders to be able to integrate both and use the best of both worlds. And so your in-person meetups are the ones where people are going to make random connections and build opportunities and gain opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. I'm a living, breathing example of this. Virtually, you're able to get people together who wouldn't otherwise be in the same room. Something we do is we get data leaders together on virtual community calls, because the kind of problems that someone experiences in the US as a data leader are not very different from the problems that a data leader in Singapore experiences. And it really benefits them to connect with each other and be able to talk about it. So there are strengths to both, and you can really strategically leverage that now.
Love that. I'm going to lose you here in a sec. just do you think do all companies have to have community, or will they inevitably end up with community if a founder, business leaders sitting here listening and does not feel that they have a community? Can they go backward and add community to an existing company structure? What's your relationship to how important, vital, and inevitable community is to any company in the future?
It's a wonderful question.
Hey, thanks.
I could talk about this all day, but really briefly, I think that any company can benefit from a community. I think that it will look different for different companies, and it really depends on your business model and what you're trying to do. Community is a source of leverage for businesses, right?
I like
That's what
that.
we talked about in terms of helping people move up the stack. And so community is a source of leverage, and it can look different depending on what you try to do in your business. And so think about what leverage you need, and maybe it's people contributing to your open source project. Maybe it's leverage in terms of helping people learn how to use your tool. And maybe it's leverage in terms of brand recognition. All of those things are possible, and it will look different for every one of you.
And they're different. Anna, I got to let you go here. Thank you so much for your time. That's Anna Fillippova, the Director of Community and Data at DBT Labs, and Conversations on how software is investing in community companies. Anna, we're going to end up talking again. I'm quite sure. I love this conversation around community. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
All right. See everyone next time. See ya.